Hi, Beth Johnston, coming to you from the TV studio of the International Women's Leadership Association. My very special guest today via Skype is honored member and delegate of the IWLA, Donna Delbene. Welcome, Donna. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. So I've so eagerly anticipated this conversation, and I know the viewers are going to be very excited to hear a lot about what you're going to share about 3D staffing. I want to first of all congratulate you. You recently celebrated your 5-year milestone, having formed your company in March of 2011. So that's a wonderful milestone for any company, and I congratulate you on that. So before March 2011, what was it that inspired you to become involved in staffing from a professional perspective?
Well, in 2005, July, I launched a company called 3D Providers, which assisted people with disabilities. A lot of people didn't believe they could learn computers, so I started assisting them with computers, and it got me into staffing people to help those with disabilities. Once that kind of grew up until about 2011, as you mentioned, actually in 2010, someone came in and said, how come you're not staffing nurses? I wasn't really sure why. It had not occurred to me. I didn't think too much of it. I said, sounds like a good idea. A few months later, someone else came in and said, why are you not staffing nurses? At that point, I thought, this is probably something I should be paying attention to. Maybe God's trying to get my attention. So I took my time, I thought about it and started praying about it and see if this is something I should get into, and made an effort to look into it, but still went back and said, well, if God wants me to get into this, I really have no clue what a nurse needs. What is the licensing? What is the credentialing? When you get into government regulation, you have to know all these things. You can't just wing it. So I'm starting to study up. A third person, literally within another couple months, comes into my office and says, why are you not staffing nurses? So at this point, I'm like, well, I want to. I've read up. I'm just at a standstill to take that first step. Just like any new company owner, what is the first step to get out there? She said, well, I'm an RN. I am not doing anything at the moment, and I think God has sent me to help you get it off the ground. So we said, let's do this. We went on the net, which seems to have a lot of info. We downloaded all kinds of documents and booklets on setting up a staffing pool of nurses. There is a lot of regulations in 3 different entities that allow that. We finally settled on what they call a healthcare staffing pool. Once we settled on that, we drew up our paperwork. We had to learn the ropes to go apply with, they call it Agency for Healthcare Administration. So if I slip and say ACA, that's kind of what I'm talking about. Once we got licensed through them in 2011, excuse me, in like March of 2011, we got our licensing, and by September, we had contracts and people calling us to staff nurses. Most of our stuff was going with hospice patients at that time. When you step back and look, you see a whole lot of nurses that were doing this field that were terribly unhappy. I had been exposed to hospice because I had lost family members, my husband had, and they didn't seem very happy at their job. So I offered to maybe do it a little different. So I support those nurses, I pay them well, and I go out of my way to watch out for them, ask them if they need anything, check on them. We pay them daily. And so now when I send a nurse out for my company, it's somebody you want to come to your home that's in a good mood and can give 100% of that talent that they have, because it is a gift. Not just anyone can do that.
No, 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 no. I know in a previous conversation, you and I certainly agree the respect, the profound respect that we have for nurses. And I really speak for everybody at the International Women's Leadership Association for the outstanding job that every nurse does. And they're so
Yes.
close to it that sometimes it's very easy for them to forget the role that they play, not only in the lives of their patients, but of course in the patients' families as well, particularly as you say, toward the end of life. in practicing as nurses. So that's a great story. I have to say it's another example of kind of be careful what you wish for, because whether by divine intervention or you being smart enough to represent a wonderful business opportunity, to recognize it rather, you focus now on nurses. You answered a call. You answered a call. So
Yes.
you mentioned a couple of things. Talk to us a little bit more about what truly differentiates 3D staffing when it comes to nurses, as opposed to others who might think they have a similar type of business.
Well, when we got into this company, there were 18 other staffing agencies. So we did have some competition. As soon as we hired only the first two or three, word of mouth spread very quickly because we were talking to them like they were human beings. We were grateful to be able to serve the public. We were inspired by the stories of the families, and we would go out of our way to thank the nurse for the great job she did for that family and what they did to change a very difficult time. It only took a short few months, and we probably had like 20 nurses all of a sudden. And when I say a nurse, there are CNA, certified nursing assistant, licensed practical nurse, and then your registered nurse. I think the CNAs do not get nearly the credit they deserve. They are up close and personal with these families. They are the one touching them, doing the bathing, holding their hand, helping them eat. It really encourages people more than someone would think, that personal touch and that kindness they give. After we started making a difference, it took less than a year. We were the company everybody had to compete with. And one of the other aspects was I am very much a stickler to do it right. Make sure their documents are in place, make sure that I contact the agencies that are trusting me with their clients. So while I'm talking to them, I'm making sure when they ask for a document, I have it in 5 minutes. When they call me, whether it's at 2 in the morning or at 8 a.m., I am answering the phone, even as a business owner, because people want to talk to you. They want to get answers. So when they come to my agency, they get support for the entire administration of my company, not just the nurses. They get an entire package. They also appreciated how much I paid the nurses. I paid them better than anyone else because I think they deserve it, and they personally deserve more than what I'm paying them. But because of regulations, there's only so much that I can get paid before I can pay them. So that's another aspect. I also offer them a lot of choices. Most people do not like to be told what to do, when, where, how, why. Probably includes me. But these nurses appreciated that I gave them some choices. When do you want to work? When would you be available? No, I'm not upset if you're working for other agencies. You let me know when you're available, and that's when I will put you on the schedule. So they appreciated someone that treated them like a team member as opposed to, I'm in charge, do what I say.
So you mentioned some very, very important distinctions there. You also mentioned answering the phone at 2 o'clock in the morning. Are you truly available 24/7?
Yes, I am. I know maybe I should rethink that. What I found is I had distanced myself a little bit when helping people with disabilities. We ended that service last year so we could focus just on nurses. But one of the things I noticed is when I was getting other staffing people in and they thought they were helping me by handling all the problems, my nurses started feeling a little bit disassociated because I wasn't speaking to them. I wasn't accessible where they could call me up. So I said, anybody that wants to talk to me, you give them my personal cell. Because if they're on a case, because when you staff, it's 24/7. Someone is there at 8 p.m. at night till 8 in the morning, and then another nurse comes in at 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. But let's say the family gets upset, the client passes, she doesn't have the information or documentation. So here she sits going, what do I do? If she calls me, I'm immediately a voice of calmness, professionalism. Let me get you some help. Here's what you want to do until I get you the help. Here's what you want to say to that family. She immediately has instruction. She has a team behind her that she feels good about. If I wasn't there at 2 a.m., imagine how you felt if she's at your house serving you and she's going, I don't know what to do, and nobody will answer the phone. So you are offering that personal touch still goes a long way. It sounds cliche, but it's still true.
So it's like a winning formula, and it sounds rather obvious the way you explain it, Donna, that you're taking very good care, very good personal care of those that others are asking to take very good care of their loved ones. Um,
Yes.
it seems, I don't want to, it seems rather obvious that you have found a winning formula. You've mentioned a couple of things. I have to imagine that in healthcare, there is a degree of spontaneity. And what I mean by that is that you think you're staffed, you think you have everybody in place where they need to be, when they need to be there with the patients or in the homes of the people they need to be. And all of a sudden there's a crisis. How do you deal with that immediacy of having to bring in more people without a lot of notice? How do you do that?
You have already a lot of protocol in place. Being the medical field, you are exposed to crises on a daily basis. And I did work in a medical laboratory for a long time, so I got some training there as well that prepared me for now. What I do is I'm already putting together plan B and plan C. So just a short scenario, you are out there with my patient and the other nurse isn't there. You call me up. She should have been here, Donna, and it's now 9 o'clock and I'm still here. I have to go home. My family's waiting on me. I'm calling around trying to find the nurse. What happened before that moment is we already explained to the family there can be times where another nurse cannot come in because although we have contingencies, reality is not everything can happen the way we want it. So when you're setting an expectation with a realistic outcome, the family is on board. When you promise something you cannot deliver, that's when you're creating an emergency. So you've already created a little bit of a plan B so they know maybe the nurse can't get here. You found out your nurse had a flat tire and she's broke down on the side of the road. You now want to talk to your nurse and also the agency you've contracted with. Let's say it's a hospice company. My nurse is on her way. She's running a little late. She has a flat tire. Can my nurse who's out there now leave? We have spoken to the family. They are okay waiting an hour or two until the other nurse arrives. The second scenario is nobody's coming. Her car broke. She is not going to make it. Again, we talk to the family and say, we've called everyone, but there isn't going to be anyone tonight. You'll have to wait till in the morning. Those are a little easier to deal with than your nurses out there. The gentleman who is supposed to be dying has family members who are not happy with each other. And they're in a horrible situation, so they're fighting with each other. Now they're really fighting, and you're calling 911 because you have a fist fight has arisen at the client's house. So you have already prepared your nurse. Again, if you have these emergency procedures in place, just like with Red Cross, you have less of a traumatic outcome. So you've already explained you need to call 911, you need to step away from the patient. The family members usually are not going to harm the patient. So you step far enough from the activity going on, you get 911 on the phone, you've already notified me, I'm already on the phone with other agencies to bring in help. So within a short time, the problem is usually quickly resolved. They know that these patients are dying. So they're nurses, they're prepared, and they know what to do in that moment. If it was not a moment where you expected the patient to die, you call the normal procedures, you're calling 911. They have all been trained in CPR, which is the cardiopulmonary resuscitation process.
So it truly
That,
has to be 24/7 based on what you're
yes.
saying, because it's that four-letter word called life that happens to all of us, and sometimes not without much warning. You mentioned something else, and I have to imagine that a necessary evil, if you want to call it, but you mentioned government regulations.
Yes.
How do they play a role, positive and or negative, and hopefully more positive than negative? But clearly, in your business, you have to be keenly aware of what all those regulations are and perform within those regulations. How do you deal with that? Are they working for you, against you? Talk to us about that.
Well, there is a twofold, what do they say, two sides of the same coin? So you do have some pluses. That a nurse has been fully trained, is certified, has to take continuing education units. These are requirements that I would be for, that I would say, yes, this is a good government regulation. But then you have regulations that will say every nurse must have all of this, and it adds up to a lot of money. The background screening went from $32 to $82. The CPR went from $25 to $60. The continuing education units are no longer $20, maybe they're 120. And then she has to renew her license every year. Here's another 150. Because of the cost of regulations, somebody who has just graduated and just paid all that money out and has not been at work because they have been at school now has it, like you hear on TV, they now owe this money.
Mm-hmm.
If they could consolidate some of these requirements at a level where everybody could access them at a less costly amount, that would help with some of this expense that we all experience. If she has just gotten out of school and cannot afford a current physical, a current skin test for PPD, immunization records to show she is not carrying any diseases with her, and again, the CPR and CEUs, she's not going to go get a job until she invests another $300-400, and she just got out of school. So that's where regulations kind of hurt. The other part of regulations is the documentation. As a nurse, I absolutely want her to know how to document well. I wanted to write down all the details that is going on with you as my client. But there's also documentation on my side that the government asks for that can get quite laborious, where they are saying you must turn in this every 3 months, this has to be turned in. The bigger regulation problems are for an overall business period. They developed three entities. One is a healthcare staffing pool, which I am. One is a home health agency, and the other one is a nurse registry. Even with the federal government and the state of Florida, there are differences in what they decide. I had a wage and hour board come into my office and tell me that the IRS and the Department of Treasury could determine my staff are independent contractors, and the wage and hour board could determine they are employees. So even in the federal government, the regulations do not match. So you could get right in one department and still be wrong in another. So trying to find a balance and read up all the time and be more familiar than the regulating agency checking on you helps. So if we wanted to reduce regulation, the best thing is to answer those surveys that we all hate that come in the mail constantly. But somebody is sending out that survey and somebody's reading it, and somebody might actually carry it forward and help reduce the overall amount of paperwork. One of the things that is good on regulation, many things are going to online. Documentation, pictures. I have nurses I have never seen face to face, thanks to the internet. I have their pictures, I have their identity, I have done background checks on them, I have sent them all documents which they have returned, and even their pay. They may take a picture of a time slip, a time card, or a document I need, send it to me, I print it out, and she's still good to go without having to drive 80 miles to bring me the paperwork that I would need. Did I cover most of that?
Oh, you did, and I'm a little overwhelmed listening to all that you have to deal with, because as the businesswoman that you are and a leader in your field, you have to be constantly up on the government regulations and work within them. Even though,
Right.
as you've said, some of them are overbearing, maybe they're outdated. And yet, I feel in speaking with you before, Donna, that where your heart really is in providing the really best services you can for the patient. So it
Right.
is that kind, as you said, both sides, two sides of the same coin. I know that you aspire to grow your company. Um,
Yes.
what's your 5-year plan? Let's talk about that.
Well, my 5-year plan would be I would like to be at least a $10 million company in 5 years. Um, it's not unrealistic. Once a company hits $1 million mark, doubling isn't as hard as you would think. Once the ball starts rolling and your name is out there and you have recognition, which we do, we're very blessed that our recognition as a trusted company. They can trust us, they can trust our staff. They know when they need documentation because they're also regulated. They can get it from me and they are not going to get caught missing proper paperwork. So if I continue where I'm at, I'm going to easily double maybe 7 agencies to 10. If I pick up additional government contracts, you hear the big GSA, Government Service Agency. They also are the same company that I have to go through to maybe staff nurses in a hospital. Once you pick one of those up, again, the same thing happened with my nurses. This agency talked to that agency. Why are you not using 3D providers or 3D staffing? I've got them on the line for us. Their prices are very reasonable. Their nurses show up on time. I truthfully had a hospice scheduler say to me, when I staff with your company, I can rest my head at night. I know I don't have to worry. That is something that will go a long way, because one complaint goes pretty far.
Yes.
But that compliment that she told other agencies is what's going to grow the company.
Yes.
Just to put an extra note, why 10 million? As the company gets larger, you can make, and it was brought up once before in financial markets, you can make a dollar on $10, or you can make a penny on 200 million on every one of those $200 million. So your percentage might drop, but you're still making money because of the volume. I can now pay that nurse better. I could maybe pay for her CEU she has to take. Maybe I could buy her a kit with the stethoscope and the equipment. Maybe I could launch a small training school where they wouldn't have to pay so much to get their education and then to get out there, or have a secondary training. Once they come out of school, the schools are not regulated very well. They're not taught a lot of things, and many of my new CNAs or LPNs will fail their competency exams because they're not being taught what they need to know. So if I had a secondary training involved in my company, I could help her more. But the more I help her, the more the government comes in and says, if you did this, she's an employee. If you did that, she's an employee. So again, the government almost restricts me sometimes from helping my staff.
And that's sad to hear, and yet I think somehow we all can relate to that, whether it's on a personal or a professional basis. Listening to you, as I said about nurses, I think you're another shining example of someone who takes tremendous pride, has great integrity and total character in how you comport yourself and how you are growing your business and providing your services. I think you're going to play a very key role. I know you want to grow first in Florida and then throughout the country in raising the standard of care, of professionalism, of staffing itself. And I look forward to working with you, hearing your progress over the next 5 years. And I'll put it out there from everybody here at the IWLA, very, very positive thoughts for you to reach that $10 million milestone. Something tells me you are going to do that, and probably in less than 5 years. I want to invite everybody to maybe even re-listen to this interview, because Donna touched on so many things. Whether you're a nurse or not, whether you're in the staffing business or not, we all have loved ones. And we may, at some point in time, find ourselves in that situation where we're looking to bring someone into our home, to the bedside of someone that we love. And I think Donna has shared so many key points on the best way to find the best care for the people that we love the most in life. So Donna, thank you for sharing that, and I think you're going to have a lot of followers here. I invite everybody who wants to connect more with Donna through your username and password right at TheIWLA.com. Log in. It's Donna Delbene. You also can reach her through her website, which, Donna, help me on that, www.3dstaffingnow.com.
Yes, and that is correct. And that site works well and has resources for the nurses, because resources sometimes are hard to find. If I could add just one last thing, I know we're wrapping up shortly. Over all this, I still feel like I'm only in this position by the grace of God. I'm not any more talented or better than the next business owner. My willingness to do what I should do and to care and put someone else first helps you to grow bigger. But overall, it's never because you're so great or wonderful. It's the team that you're working with, the people that work for you are who your company is. So, I'm very grateful to be in this position, and you get blessed the more you helping somebody else, or even a new nurse trying to become an RN. You're blessed in return. You just changed a life from where it was to something better? Did you leave them off better than when they met you, or did you help them a leg up onto the next level of their journey, being an RN and getting a job of their dreams? Just one last thing with our contracts that most people would totally disagree with, but what works. I do not have a compete clause. If you are hiring my nurse to help you in your hospital and you want to hire her on from me, I will, I don't charge you a fee. I do not charge her a fee. I will help her transition from my company to theirs. There is no waiting period. I do not want to do anything to block her from the job that is best for her, and then I will just hire new staff to back up her position. And so many companies want money and want to block the path of you going to work for another company. And I'm not possessive like that. I am here to support that staff, and wherever they need to go, I'm going to get them there. There will always need to be backup. So I don't need to be possessive and greedy of them. I need to be supportive and helpful.
I hear that passion, I hear that conviction, and I said I think you're going to raise the standard. I think in that final statement, Donna, you just did.
That
I
is my slogan. That's the slogan on my time slip, raising the standard of excellence in care. It's funny you would say that.
Well, it comes through in speaking with you and hearing you speak. It's quite obvious to me, and I'm sure to all of our viewers. Donna, thank you so much. I know how busy you are, and it's meant the world to me that you would take this time and chat with all of us today. Again, we wish you nothing but continued success. We thank you for all that you've done, and particularly in the niche that you've chosen, so important to all of us. And we'll be back with you, I know, long before 5 years. And again, nothing but the best to you, to your company, to your staff, to your family as well. And from all of us at the IWLA, it's been our pleasure. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you very much.